GCSE exam stress. It's tough for your children and it's tough for you. So how do you navigate the highs and lows, as well as lessen the impact it has on the rest of the family?
In this episode, Paul and Emily from Parent Guide to GCSE are here with practical strategies to help make this time more bearable and support your child reach their full potential. Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
With Paul and Emily, who run the Parents Guide to GCSEs and have a podcast about it as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this?
Yeah. Hi. So we are both teachers by trade, although not yes. Were. Sorry, that's the important part. Were. So we actually met when we started our second teacher training placement at the same time, same day, same school, and we were both married to different people at that point, and a few years down the line, everything kind of changed around a little bit, and now we're stuck with each other, possibly forever. That's my plan.
Possibly. What have I done wrong?
And yeah, so we're teaching for 15, 16 years, and then teaching became less and less fun as we went along, and more and more stressful as we went along, and we decided we needed to try something a little bit different. Had a bit of an epiphany about the fact that nobody's really great at supporting parents through this process, and having just had our teenagers go through their GCSEs, we kind of really appreciated it from the other side for the first time, and that was the beginning of the business.
Right. Wow. Well, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to relate to this. As you know, like our podcast focuses on people in midlife, so many of them will have children going through or about to go through this whole exam experience. Like, what general advice would you give parents for helping their children with this?
I think what we tend to sort of focus on is routine, and the sooner they can get into revising little and often and making it part of their daily lives after school, essentially, the sooner they can start to see the progress they're making towards their exams.
Yeah, all adds up really quickly. You don't need to be doing hours and hours a night, so it's just little and often, and then it's less painful. There's less nagging involved, which is always good.
In an ideal world, I mean, year 11 is obviously exam year, as it were, but the sooner any student can get into some sort of routine about making sure they're looking over their notes, making revision cards, whatever, revision resources, then they're going to be in a better position when it comes to year 11. So start sooner and you will have less stress.
Right. Yeah. And so would you say now is a good time for kids to be starting doing their revision and starting to think about their cards and things like that?
Well, we interviewed some on our last podcast. We interviewed some students who'd just been through the GCSE process, and we were a little bit surprised that they all essentially confessed to starting around this time of year in the run up to exams. Our twins, they did start much earlier than that, and we just thought, the start of year 11 is kind of pretty much the start of the big push. But I think the more common time, the average time, I think, is around now.
Yes, it's when people start to panic because they've had their mock results. So that tends to kick up the butt that some of them need to start the
Well, as you know, James and I don't have kids, but I do have two lovely nieces, and one of Jessica. If you're ever listening to this podcast, she won't, because it's probably a little bit uncool for her midlife mentors. But she, God love her, she's actually a very intelligent, smart girl anyway, but she got her mock results, and it's exactly what you have just said. Very smart, but I think rested on her laurels a little too much, and she's got her results for her mocks, and now it is just cramming. She's just cramming revision. It's very stressful for my brother and his wife Kerry. So I'm seeing that in full flow at the moment in my life, in my family.
Yeah, well, it is scarily common because teenagers aren't so great at planning ahead, generally speaking, and so they just kind of assume it'll all work out, and I don't think they fully appreciate just how much work you have to put in to get the results that you deserve to kind of fulfill your potential and all the airy fairy ways of describing it. And you've got 9, 10, 11 subjects depending on your school and things, and you've got at least 2 exams for each one for the most part. It's a lot of revision, it's a lot of information, and so the more you can spread it out, the longer you can spread it out across, the less stressful it is and the less cramming you have to do. Yeah, it's I mean, a lot
of students do well in tests in class, so for a particular topic you can easily revise for it. There's not a huge amount to cover, and you get good results, and you keep getting this feedback from the teacher that you're doing really, really well. When you sit down and do a mock exam and everything has been examined, it can be a real wake up, and because it's not just that the last week's topic you're covering, it is the entire syllabus, and that is where the problem starts and finishes, really.
Again, that's a bit of a wake up call for them, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, where we are at the moment, essentially it's 100 days to the first exam. I know.
That's me anxious. I'm actually getting a tightening around my chest just remembering my exams, actually.
I've actually put your name down for a couple.
I most certainly wouldn't do any good right now.
It sneaks up on you. It's faster than you realise. It's before Christmas and it feels like it's ages away, and then Christmas happens and that all goes through really quickly. And then all of a sudden, I mean, despite the fact that January is the longest month in the entire history of the universe, and it's really soon. The 11th of February will be 3 months until the first exam. So it's come quickly.
What you're saying really resonates with me, because I think exactly that's happened to me. I had pretty good GCSE results, and then I was still doing well at everything in school. So for my A-level mocks, I just thought I didn't need to bother. But clearly the E's I got in my mocks showed me otherwise.
No, but also, James, that is because as a person by nature, you are definitely not a planner at all. I was quite a swot at school, so I did plan for my GCSEs and everything. So, but that's because I'm a planner.
One question I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of talk these days about how the exams are very different to maybe the exams that we would certain and that our listeners would have sat. How have you seen GCSEs in particular evolve, and how are they different now?
Well, the whole grading thing's massively different is the first thing. I think most parents are probably still slightly mystified about how it is graded these days. It's no longer the A to Fs. It's generally 9 to 1, 9 being fantastic, 1 being not so fantastic. There's also the BTEC, CTEC type qualifications, and they are pass to distinction. So when you get a set of results these days, generally, I mean, there's all sorts of different letters, numbers. It's very confusing, and it's very frustrating from a teacher point of view, because, give us a set of rules to work to and let us be good at teaching that, rather than keeping changing everything what seems like every 2 or 3 years was one of our biggest frustrations.
That's a good point.
As well, because as an employer, when you're looking at particularly kids who have just kind of started the new GCSE system, you're going to get a total mix. You're going to get some kids that have still got, A star to G, and some kids that have got some numbers and some letters. I can't even imagine how you weed out CVs and decide who's doing well and who's not doing well with that just mishmash across those 3 years.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point as an employer when they go out into the world. Actually, how do you know whether you're getting someone that fits the bill or not?
Exactly. And if you are an old school kind of, an older employer, then if you were around when it was it O-levels?
Yeah.
Are we talking back in
O-levels?
Where
Yeah.
it was 1 to 9, but it was the other way around. So some of them grew up in a system where 1 was amazing, 9 was rubbish, and now they could be making some serious mistakes with employing people.
Another thing that's changed recently is that the government has said basically to schools, you only have to, or you'll only be judged on 8 subjects. So every student has to sit 8 maximum. They have to be English and maths. There has to be a language. There has to be geography or history. So there are some rules within that. But because it is essentially, it's called Progress 8, schools are generally offering 8 subjects only. So it's kind of narrowing down what we would see as being a kind of a rich and diverse curriculum to a very kind of pointed, you must do this. You don't get too many options these days.
One size fits all.
Yeah, it's all about playing the system, because that's what the government and Ofsted make schools do, and it benefits nobody, frankly.
That's really sad, actually.
It is sad that we're kind of restricting people's learning like that.
And creativity to a degree, right?
So things
Definitely.
like the arts, they're suffering badly. Schools just aren't funding them. I say schools, I mean that's a sweeping statement. A lot of schools who are trying to save money will look at things like the arts, and they will be the first subjects to go, or have already gone, as is many schools.
Oh, actually, that reminds me. I know it's not like an exam subject, but I have heard we obviously are in the fitness business, and we hear all the time that increasingly physical exercise (PE) is just increasingly just like marginalised in schools these days. Because again, it's not like examined, it's not graded, and again, it's just like extra money the school has to spend that's not actually going towards results.
Yep.
Have you seen that occurring?
Absolutely. I mean, in year 11. Particularly PE is suffering, and in year 11 students need to be running around, getting rid of energy, playing games, learning team sports, enjoying all the aspects that brings, but essentially they're limited to 1 hour session, and that's it. It doesn't end up in an exam. They don't get any credit for it, as it.
And that is why child obesity is on the rise in the UK.
Yeah,
there'll be main reasons. Yeah. I mean, I think the stats for the numbers of teenagers that are actually hitting the government guidelines for physical exercise, which are very low in themselves, is shockingly bad.
Yeah.
Just back to exams again. We touched there on a different way of the gradings. I think I might have read, or it may have been the Daily Mail, so excuse me if it's wrong, about a recent exam where
it probably was wrong.
They marked it, but then they hadn't met a quota of people getting a certain grade. So everyone either got graded up or down. So everyone had got a C, but then they made the C's A's or something. Does that ring a bell?
It doesn't necessarily, but they always do. They with GCSEs, they set the grade boundaries after they've marked everything. So they'll take in every paper across the entire country. It all gets marked. It all gets put in a giant spreadsheet or database or whatever they do. And then they decide what the grade boundaries are going to be, because they're basically kind of graded on a curve. Not really, but loosely the same sort of percentage of people get each grade each year, roughly. So yeah, if one of the things that we've said to our members is, if we were to help everyone in the entire country in the exact same way, and all the kids got slightly better results, they would just adjust the grade boundaries so that nobody got better results. So it's got to be, if your child does better, it is slightly, sadly, at the expense of someone else's child, because that's how they set the grades.
I never knew that.
Very
enlightening. Like an absolute, if you got 80%, that meant a certain grade. But
not having children, this is very enlightening.
No, I mean, when they set an exam paper for, it doesn't matter which subject, for maths, for example, they don't deliberately try and make it harder or easier than the year before, but inevitably there will be a higher sort of, it might be that 95% was this, got you a grade 9 last year, whereas for a certain percentage to get that highest grade, you only need to get 85%. So they will literally look at the results and then decide what grade you get from that. So the same number of people will get the grade 1s or the fails as the previous year. It's just the percentage required to get that.
Percentages have changed once they've all been taken. That's crazy.
Interesting.
I mean, it doesn't change too much. I mean, you've got a fairly good idea about what you need to do to get a particular grade, but it is not a science until the grades have
What about balancing out the papers? Because if there's a really tough paper and they've put in a question that turns out to be much harder than they thought it was when they put it in paper, that's their way of making sure that doesn't then completely mess everybody up. But it's still, it's challenging because you can't predict as a teacher and say to students, if you know you've got X number of marks, then you've got this grade. You just can't do that anymore. And it used to be easier, I think, to be able to predict. Like when it was all kind of, if you got a D, you were stuffed. If you got a C, you were fine. And it's to some extent the same now. If you don't pass and get a grade 4, you now legally have to resit English and or maths until you hit 18 or you get your grade 4. But it was easier to predict. Like I was really good at one point at getting kids that were on a D on their maths up to a C, and that I couldn't do as easily by the time I got to the end of my teaching time. It just wasn't as simple anymore as it used to be, and I don't know why that would be different, but it was.
Fascinating stuff. While we're on the subject of grades, one worry or concern out there, I guess, for parents and children exams is they might have sat them maybe last year and not got the grades they were wanting, or they might be heading into them, as you say, into 3 months' time and thinking they're not going to get great grades. And I can remember at the time, the pressure you feel to perform well, and it can seem like the biggest thing in the world. But actually, what advice would you give to parents to help their children cope with maybe not performing as well as they might have been expecting?
Well, if they've already, if we're talking about mock exams and they have just got mock exam results back, obviously it isn't too late is the key message. But with not that many days to go to the first exam, obviously starting a really organised revision schedule is very important. If it's about exams, the results they've already got, so they got the GCSE results last year and they didn't do as well. There is always the opportunity to go to a sixth form college and essentially do your GCSEs again. It's kind of almost like a year of purgatory. Yeah, they'll hate it, but it's one of those things where you've almost got to do your time, do the year, and then you can move on to your A-level subjects. The same as anyone else. The only difference being that you'll finish school when you're 19 rather than 18. Yeah,
you can't realistically, having watched lots of people try, it is incredibly difficult to do your maths or English resit alongside some A-levels. So if you manage to get into your A-level courses, but you legally still have to do your resits, like just the amount of content to cover is very, 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 very difficult. The lessons aren't set up in the same way as they were when you were in year 11, which means you usually get less contact time with your teacher at that point. It's a lot of pressure to put on someone alongside A-levels. So it can really make year 12 challenging if you're trying to do that. We would probably advise working your way up to that and starting with a level 2 course beforehand. But yeah, it's tricky. We've tried to make revision planning easy, because I know you said that one of you is very organised and the other one not so much.
No names.
No names, no. And so when we first started this, we thought we've got to show people how to make a really good revision plan. And we looked at all the tools out there and they weren't amazing, and they were quite complicated and quite fiddly and a bit glitchy. So we made our own, and we've now got a free revision planner that you can use on our site, where, provided you don't want to do fancy things to it like add blocks on the weekend or prioritize subjects, because those are things that are member features, the free version will let you basically put in your lessons, your subjects, put in your term dates and press generate me a plan, and it will generate a whole revision plan that then you can print as a PDF and just work your way through. Like, from now, here's what I'm supposed to do. Today is a maths block. I've done my maths block, I've ticked it off. There is no excuse anymore to not have a plan. It is super easy and you can do it in about 5 minutes. So if you're listening and your child needs a revision plan, parentguide2gcse.com. And
yes, I was about to say, would you mind giving us that address?
Yeah, say that link again, and we'll drop it in the notes for the show as well. So
everyone
just
listening,
say it one more time.
Parentguide2gcse.com, and then there's a link along the top that says revision planner. Shockingly, that's the link to the revision planner.
Yes, go grab that.
That's amazing. I love that. Thank you. So just on to the next thing. And this is something that's really close to our heart as well, the whole impact of social media. Obviously on everyone, but from your side, there's so many challenges that we believe that social media throws up now for children and teenagers. What kind of advice and tips would you give to parents, to help them cope with this, especially around time of revising? Because again, I know that from seeing my nieces, they are, they're addicted, right? There's no two ways about it. They're addicted to social media. A majority of teenagers, children, are completely addicted to their phones. And rather than sitting there revising, they might be on social media and all of the terrible things that comes with that. So are there any hints and tips you might give parents around that?
I mean, the first hint, it's not rocket science, but if they're revising, you can't have your phone with you. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's anywhere near them, teenagers are not physiologically capable of not looking at what message just come through, who's just Snapchatted them, what they're missing out on outside in the real world, as it were. And if the phone is in the room, effective revision just can't happen. It's got to be not taken away. It's got to be trusted, or they've got to be trusted to make sure that they're not anywhere near the phones, basically. If they're doing an hour's revision a day, it's not a huge amount of time to be in the dark, as it were. And that's the absolute first, last and best bit of advice we could give.
I know.
That's great advice, I think.
Yeah, sorry, Emily, go on.
No, if you really, really can't drag them away from their phone, then there are apps to help them with the focusing. I think it's called Forest, and basically, I think the longer you leave your phone undisturbed for, the bigger your tree grows. And if you look at your phone before you're supposed to, your tree dies, or something. They've kind of gamified it, basically. But I think they're also using that to then plant trees across, in real life. So there's some social good built into that as well. But if they need that little gimmick to help keep them off, then better. But I mean, even do not disturb will partly do the trick. It's really difficult to break the habit.
It's a massive challenge, right? Parents. It's a huge challenge for parents to navigate that social media presence constantly, and the phones. I see it, as I've said, with my nieces, and I know it's a struggle for my brother and his wife to try and tease that out so they actually revise. It's a constant challenge, something we didn't have. That's why it's so difficult as midlifers as well. It's difficult to understand that absolute addiction. Like, they're hardwired, as you said, that they are hardwired to be completely addicted to it. And as soon as they get a like, release of dopamine. These guys know what they're doing when they created these social media apps, right?
When I occasionally still go into the school I used to work in, just to do a day a week from time to time, and I'll see sixth formers sitting at a table at lunchtime, eating their lunch, literally all around the table. So they're all mates, they all know each other, and they're sitting there in total silence, and they're staring at their phones. They're probably messaging the person opposite them as part of some sort of group. And it is genuinely bizarre, because obviously our generation, we didn't have it, and we would talk, and you'd discuss and go and kick a foot, do all the sort of the fun things, the athletic things. But no, it's just very much sitting there in silence, face down, playing a game or on social media, one of the two.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad we didn't have it in our day.
I am too. Thank you so much for giving kind of some of those tips. It's really helpful. So as a couple like us, running a business together, how have you found that? We get asked this question all the time, guys. So we thought we would be, actually, probably for the first time ever, asking the question to you. Running a business together, how have you found that? And what are the challenges and upsides of working together? So the challenges and upsides.
Okay, so the challenges are that we have to work in different rooms to each other. Now, I'm okay with working with Paul, but he says, and I will neither confirm nor deny this, he says that I talk to myself too much. And because he's he's been well trained as a husband. He knows that if I'm
True.
talking, he should be listening in case it's important and he needs to respond. And so I distract him from his work.
Brilliant.
So,
I love you guys already. So many, already a similarity there.
yeah, she's banging on about something, and I'm like, what? I pay attention.
If I don't talk to my computer, how will it know what I want it to do?
I think it's great you're paying attention. I get accused of marital deafness all the time.
Oh, you are definitely suffering for as time goes on. Marital deafness is increasing.
I did not know marital deafness was a
Don't teach him
thing.
that term.
I've never heard that before. That's transformed my life.
It's a great get out. It's a great get out.
I didn't hear it, Claire. I didn't hear it.
Had nothing. And then upsides is so I've been doing this for 2 years now, kind of building up. There's been other stuff since I left teaching before we started up this business, but Paul has only sort of mostly quit teaching. I've nearly got him fully out of the classroom. For about 2 months, and in the last 2 months or so, I have had lunch more often than I ever have, because I get in the zone and I'm sat and I'm working, and then I'll look up and it'll be 3:30 and the child's arriving home from school, and I'll go, oh, I forgot to eat. It's no wonder I'm hungry. But Paul is brilliant at taking care of both of us.
Just Paul is brilliant. All you need to say.
No, and this is being
Like
included as
James,
well.
Paul is brilliant.
I'm living with him, but yeah, we both went mostly veggie about 6 months ago now, and so we've got a range of yummy lunches. Paul got a soup machine last year, best present ever, because he makes fresh soup most days, and it's awesome. So I certainly am eating much more healthily as a result of us working together.
We just have more time to spend, rather than grabbing rubbish food from a shop, we can actually buy ingredients in, still make it a quick meal because we've got work to be doing, but it's just so nice to have the time to do that and not have to rush out of, when I was teaching, I was in school at 7 o'clock, I'd be home at 5 o'clock, it's just, and then, an hour or so with the family, then straight onto the marking, preparation, planning. I didn't see anyone. It was just making me miserable. And as I suppose I have to admit to sort of being midlife, was it a crisis? I think it got to the stage where I realised I just couldn't keep doing it anymore. I had to start looking after myself, and hence why we started thinking about business ideas. And it's been lovely. We do Fridays as well, so every Friday. We try and do something that's just a bit different. We'll go for brunch. We go for lunch.
Guys, we love that. That's what we try and do as well. Absolutely. I love that you do that, because it's really important when we've been working together for years now, but when you've got so much passion for what you're doing, you do end up getting just caught in this cycle of being so passionate. So just talking about it all the time, thinking about it all the time, even when you're not supposed to be. And there are so many upsides, but that's one of the challenges, actually trying to switch off from the business and see each other as, your mate, and to go out and have playtime and do something different and take yourself out of that environment of work.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite bits of the week is that we get to actually just have that quality time together. So we make sure we do it during the school day, and then when the kids are home, we can then have a bit of quality time with them on a Friday afternoon as well, which is nice. So, yeah, but we are seeing a lot more of them than we used to, aren't we? It's good.
Oh, that's great. I mean, a really positive message for all our listeners as well. So thank you for that. I guess time to wrap it up and ask, if you have any final parting words for parents to help support their children at stressful exam time.
Well, we can offer lots and lots of lovely help. If you come and join our mailing list, then you can find out about all the various things that we offer. There's lots of free advice as well, or you can join our membership program where we literally talk you through week by week. Here's what you should be thinking about this week. Here's the one thing to do that will make a difference this week. And we also have a Facebook group at nearly 1,000 members. We're getting very close now, of parents whose kids are doing their GCSEs, who all then just jump in and support each other. It's really lovely. They'll come on and say, oh, my child's come home with this app, which is brilliant. has anyone else seen this? And then everyone will pile in, oh yeah, we like that one. Oh,
That's incredible. For listeners out there, you have to go and check that out, guys.
So
that sounds amazing.
This is the positive side of social media, when you can build like engaged communities around like a positive subject and everyone supports each other. And we love to see that.
Like we have that with our community. We've got a really engaged community around what we do, our online platform, and it's just a beautiful thing. You kind of create it, and then to a degree, you're always in there. You're always looking at it and checking it. But actually, what you do is see people starting to help each other on a really regular basis, like becoming advocates for the community. It's such a lovely thing to see.
Yeah, it's growing all the time as well from the Facebook point of view. So it's nice to see when you see all these comments coming through. It kind of makes you, just makes you smile, frankly, because they're all helping each other. Really good advice. It's all positive, unlike Twitter, which occasionally can be a little bit not so positive, should we say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
exactly. So would you mind just obviously letting people know?
Give us that URL one more time so everyone can find you.
Or how to find you, and obviously, hopefully, fingers crossed, join that membership program, or just all the free tips and stuff. So if you could give that URL again, that would be great. Just as we finish off.
Yep, it is parentguidetogcse.com, or you can find us on Facebook as Parent Guide to GCSE.
Absolutely
amazing.
Brilliant. Oh, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you, so drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.